Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to Couchbase Coding with Matthew Groves. This is a 10-ish minute slice of my day as a developer advocate, live every day. Check out old episodes on YouTube, information at the top of the screen. Email me, tweet me your comments, questions, suggestions. I'd love to hear from you. The music you heard, if you were just in the waiting room, is called Urbana Metronica, the Woo Ya Mix by Spinning Merkaba. It's a nice little fun tune, and I thought that would be a good choice for Friday. I hope everyone had a good time at Couchbase Connect and learned a lot. Today, I'm going to show you some more .NET stuff, continuing my mostly .NET theme this week. I want to show you Linq to Couchbase because I know a lot of .NET developers out there really like Linq, and you're used to stuff like Entity Framework or Linq to SQL, things like that. So if you want to use Couchbase, you can also use Linq with that using the Linq to Couchbase library. This is an open source project. The guy I talked about yesterday, Brant Burnett, does a lot of work on this. He uses it day to day. Also, Jeffrey Morris does a lot of work on this as well. So more shouts out to them. I'm just going to use a travel sample bucket just like yesterday. So let's bring up Visual Studio here and get started. And we're just going to keep it to a simple console app today. This is episode 22, I think. So we'll just call it that. I'm just going to go walk through some of the examples that he's got on the Linq to Couchbase documentation. And we'll see where that takes us. All right, so first of all, we're going to get a cluster. Well, before we even do that, we have to actually install a dependency. So I'm going to browse here and look for Linq to Couchbase. And there we go. Install it. And that'll also install the Couchbase SDK for us and whatever else we need to work with that. This should work fine in .NET Core or with .NET Framework. But it occurs to me I've never tried it with .NET Core, so hopefully it works. Okay, we'll connect to a new cluster. We'll give it a new client definition. I'm not going to use a config file, just going to hard code it for now. Servers, new list of URIs, new URI, localhost 8091. Must type this a million times a day. And we need to authenticate this as well. So cluster, authenticate, and it's just good old Matt and password, the worst credentials in the world. Okay, and once we have a cluster, we'll get a bucket. And we'll say cluster.openBucket. Travel sample. All right, so there we go. This is all the Couchbase SDK at this point. I haven't done any Linq yet. The Linq stuff is basically just like Linq. It's extension methods, but they go on top of the bucket, right? So, that's not strictly true. They go on top of something called a bucket context. So, kind of like a context you'd see in Linq to or Entity Framework, that sort of thing, other Linq providers. So, we'll do bucket context. And we'll pass in the bucket here, which is just that one bucket. So now I've got this context, and that's where the extension methods are. So, for instance, I could say, let's do a query. And I don't like the raw syntax personally. So we could do something like this. We could say context.query, and we'll need an object or a class like airline. So we'll get to that, and we'll say where. In fact, let's just do that right now. Public class airline. And if we go back over to Couchbase here, we can see what actually fields we should be looking at. So travel sample, an airline, we've got these fields here. I'll just copy and paste them. Why not? So that's literally what the fields are called. So in my C# class, I will do a string called callsign. That'll work. We'll do a string called country. We don't necessarily need all these fields, but I'm going to put them all in there. IATA, no idea what that is. Probably some airline thing. ICAO, don't know what it is, but I know it's indexed. We've got ID, which this is not the document key. It's an ID. It looks to be a number. Just maybe call that ID for now. I'm not really sure about that. And then name and type. A type should always be airline. And we'll talk about that some more. Some interesting things that Linq to Couchbase does with this type field. that Couchbase itself doesn't do, but Linq to Couchbase adds some functionality. So we have this query. We'll say where, and we know it's an airline type, so we can say where air country equals United Kingdom. And we'll just take 10 of those. All right, so what this does is behind the scenes, it's going to actually generate the nickel, much like Entity Framework generates the SQL, that'll run on Couchbase. And then we can go ahead and get the results of that. Let's say query.toList. And we can write those out. We'll just write those out to the console. For each one of those, we'll do, we don't have to do this, but we'll do console.writeLine, writeLine, and we'll say a dot, oh, I don't know, a dot name. That's probably good enough. And don't forget to close up the cluster at the end. No, we'll just dispose the cluster at the end. That'll be fine, I think. All right, so hopefully this will work. Let's give it a shot. So there we go. I took the top 10 there and outputted the airline names. Pretty exciting there. I only recognize a few of those airlines, British Airways, of course, but those other ones must be smaller airlines that are based in the United Kingdom. I don't know. All right, so that's pretty cool. The equivalent would be writing something like this, where I'd say select a dot star from travel sample A, where a dot country equals United Kingdom. Now, one of the things that this didn't actually do is check the type, which it doesn't look like it probably needs to, but normally I would also want to say where a dot type equals airline. Let's see if this has any effect on the console output. And it looks like no. So it's probably fine in this case. Maybe we just got lucky in the first 10 results were airlines. But you need to usually configure a type on this. Now, if I remember correctly, look at the documentation here. There is something in Linq to Couchbase. There is a, whoops, let me see that. There's a property you can put, an attribute you can put on airline to tell Linq to Couchbase to use that as a type. So you don't have to constantly be adding where type equals this, where type equals that in your Linq. I'm trying to remember what it is. I'm just looking through the documentation here. I think it is document type filter. Yes. Okay. So up here, I would create a document type filter, and I would say airline. So just to clarify here, if I entered this as my Linq statement, this would be the equivalent nickel that's going to generate. And notice that there's no where type equals on there. So I'd have to add this in here in order for a dot type equals airline to be generated. Now that's fine, you can totally do that, but it is kind of annoying you have to enter that type in every single query. So what you can do instead is you can put an attribute on this class, so document type filter, where it's going to automatically append that to your generated nickel for you. So it's going to end up generating this, even though I didn't explicitly say type equals airline in this value here. And this is something different than your Entity Framework or Linq to SQL or what have you, because it's a NoSQL database. It's a document database. There isn't such a thing like tables where you can limit this. So in the relational database, this would look at, say, an airline table, for instance, but they're all together in one big bucket in Couchbase. So that doesn't work that way. All right, so let's just go ahead and run this to make sure that it's picking up correctly. And there we go. Same as before. All right, what else? We're about 11 minutes in already. I can't believe that. Let's just do one more example, and we'll go, let's see, we'll look at the meta keyword. That's kind of important, I think. So what you can do here is you can select, and let's go back to the the normal syntax here. So from a in context dot query of airline, we could say where a dot country equals United Kingdom. And then sometimes I do like to use this syntax when I want to do something more complex with the select. So what you could do here is you could say select a dot country, a dot. So you select a dot country, right, and that will return a collection of strings. Now, if you want to actually create an object, you would typically you'd use an anonymous object or maybe another class you've created. So this is going to return a collection of anonymous types, right? So that's fine. I could say a dot country and a dot name and so on. I'm curious what that's actually going to print out if I run this. Oh, that's probably going to select all of them. But there we go. It's showing, looks like just the name is being output, not the country. That's, oh, because I'm just outputting. What if I console.writeLine A? Is that gonna, what's that gonna output? Okay, so there we go. You can see that I've created this object with country and name, and it's sort of a projection, if you will. But there are some fields, there's some things about a Couchbase document that are not actually in the contents of the document. And so what he's done in Linq to Couchbase is we have this nickel functions, which has a number of different things. These correspond to functions you can use in nickel, like date diff and date add and so on. But what I want to look at is called meta. And we're going to look at meta.a and get the ID. So it's going to get the key of the document, the ID of the document. So when I execute that, you're going to see now I've got the actual document key in there. All right? So that may be important if you want to select that key out, you want to present that key to the UI or use it in the query string, something like that. You'd want to do that. You can't do that by saying a.id, because those are two different things here. So this is the actual document key. This is, oh, that's not how you do it. Get my syntax mixed up. Document key equals, and this is this is some field in document named ID, and there's nothing magical about that field. It's not required. It's not, nothing's enforced on it. It's just a field that happens to have the name ID. And you'll see the difference here, I think, in the results. You see that this is the actual document key, airline underscore not 19525. This is just an ID in the database called 19525. That might be a remnant of some migration, or it just might be redundant information, but this value can change. This value, this key cannot change. So that's an important difference in those. So any meaning you subscribe to this field is purely just database logic. There's nothing magical about this field. All right, so I think that's probably enough to talk about today. If you're curious to know more about Linq to Couchbase, go check it out here on GitHub under Couchbase Labs, Linq to Couchbase. And this is something that's just an active project. Jeffrey Morris and Brant are definitely working on this, and there's some other contributions as well. Those are the two main ones, I believe. Yeah, Mike Goldsmith. Don't forget Mike Goldsmith. He does a lot of great work with .NET, and some other contributions out there as well. But this is definitely a cool project. If you're interested in Linq and you want to apply your Linq knowledge to Couchbase, go check that out. All right, well, that's all for today. You guys all have a good weekend. Thanks for watching again this week, and we'll see you on Monday.